Black Ops franchise has never really shied away from Easter eggs, whether that be something relating to a storyline, to zombies and Easter eggs there and the more so grand scale things, or if it's just something hidden in plain view that is a callback to something else. The Black Ops series is probably the most in-depth out of the series that we've seen in the Call of Duty franchise, and Black Ops 4 is absolutely no exception. Today we're going to be taking a look at 16 different Easter eggs that are hidden in plain view and may have a lot more weight than you may ever think, and some you might not even notice really or ever even there, or what they end up doing. So today we're examining those, and of course, if you guys want to see more of these, we'll keep this going because we just scratched the surface with 16 of these. We know how in-depth the game is with Blackout, multiplayer, and zombies, but with all of these, we're taking a look at all these on simply 4 different occasions, 3 multiplayer maps and 2 within Blackout. So naturally, there is so much more we can do with these. So if you guys want to see more of these, more Easter eggs that are hidden in plain view or that you didn't really know about, feel free to let me know in the comments, but that said, let's jump right into it. Let's start out with the more serious ones, the more whimsical coming towards the end, but Black Ops 4 has a little bit of a backstory whether you know it or not, and of some of these maps, there are more that kind of speak volumes of that backstory, and we're gonna start with Hacienda. Now this one we're gonna take a look at firstly in the sort of office room. There's a lot going on in here, but if you take a look at one of the walls with a couch right in front of it, you see that there is a reference board pinned up with all sorts of pictures, post-it notes, string tying everything together, you name it. And in this, we actually get a ton of information on how Black Ops 1 through 4 are actually tied together in terms of some key locations. So in this board, you end up seeing a lot of different maps. From Black Ops 1, you see Hazard, Black Ops 2, you see Hijacked, Black Ops 3, there's Hunted, Stronghold, and Empire, and Black Ops 4, there's Contraband, Frequency, Militia, and Icebreaker. Now, these are all tied together by this sort of backstory, in which for Hacienda, it's sort of a drug lord's compound. The Black Ops 1 map, Hazard, was a retreat for one of his board members. The Black Ops 2 map, Hijacked, was this drug lord's private yacht. Black Ops 3, the map Hunted, was a private estate. Stronghold was a data facility. Empire had no real information given to it, but presumably it's just a remote estate that this drug lord owned. And then Black Ops 4 is where we start to see this all cap off, because Contraband was a data facility and arms cache, and there's actually a reference of a shipment manifest including a nuclear bomb, which we'll get to in just a second. Frequency was where the WSB, which we've talked about them before on the channel, was leaking information to raid the drug lord's compounds. Militia is an enemy combatant group's location, the Patriots of the North. They've conflicted with this drug lord before, and Icebreaker is where it's believed that this nuclear missile actually is. So to me, that's absolutely fascinating to see this backstory building by simply something that you and I have probably run past a million times in game. But let's return back to that nuclear missile mention once again on the manifest. If you take a look at the manifest, it ends up saying that it was a recovery mission, which was a failed attempt. But when we take a look at that board again, that reference board stringing everything together, it ends up having a sticky note that says, "Man with the eye patch led the raid and stole the secret weapon location data." But the interesting part is this man with the eye patch is actually mentioned multiple times on this reference data. And if you take a look at who that is, that's Raul Menendez. Before we even dive deep into how Menendez is even in Black Ops 4, if you take a look at just the character model within Blackout's character selection, Raul Menendez is donning that white suit and of course an eye patch. Fits the MO perfectly. But when you dig a little bit deeper, Raul Menendez actually is a part of Black Ops 4's backstory, and believe it or not, that backstory actually plays into this same multiplayer universe. And we'll make some more reference of that throughout the video, but just know that that is a big video of plan that I have that honestly is just way too in-depth to just mention in passing here. But regardless, a Raul Menendez Easter egg is hidden in plain view once again within the map Hacienda. So certainly intriguing, but let's tie this in a little further, because if you take a look at the map Contraband, this is something that's glitched out before for me. I've seen it working and I've seen it not. But if you take a look at the weapons cache by the manifest that we just mentioned on Contraband, in one of the back rooms, you end up seeing that these weapons sometimes don red crystals, which in turn looks to be dark matter. And kind of tying in with the backstory, it's starting to piece itself together now, because dark matter could be the cancer that Menendez references in some audio logs that, now that we know he's part of the MP universe, could give some more clarity on the entire situation as a whole and give meaning to dark matter itself within the lore of Black Ops 4. One interesting part that I think could play into that is that his quote in the audio logs is "the cancer is spreading," and within Black Ops 4 we see dark matter not only grow spikes out of the weapons but also evolve over time with certain amounts of kills. But like we said, that entire universe, multiplayer, the backstory, and even a little more is all the same, and again, that's just another story for another day. But let's take a step back a little bit and talk about the universe as a whole, not necessarily specific happenings and specific characters. Let's head on over to the map Arsenal. This one, we're gonna be taking a look at the center test facility right where B flag normally would be. When you take a look at the design, it's almost symmetrical. There are two tables in which they have the same things on them, and of that, you can take a look at what is a blueprint for the MPD from Moon in Zombies. Now, that's quite interesting to me because obviously, again, we never really see this crossover. We saw one time in Black Ops 3 on Combine that there was a wave gun blueprint there, but it's something that with this, taking a look at the MPD, it doesn't really make sense chronologically for this company, Diasler, as they wouldn't be making the MPD because we know that Black Ops 1 is well before Black Ops 4, but they could be studying the blueprint and the powers of it because, again, calling back to the last mentions of it, everything's in the same universe based off of how deep the story in Black Ops 4 goes and what's actually revealed. So it easily could be a studying case, and when you learn more of what the company is seemingly up to, it makes a little bit more sense. And that leads me into the next Easter egg here at this one. There's a whiteboard in that same testing facility in which you can end up seeing there are mentions for tests for the helicopters that they're making actually in that room. On a whiteboard looking off to the left, you can end up seeing that there is a mention of identify what is causing failure at this point, which showcases a graph that has a little bit of performance fluctuations, but then a sharp decline and just cliff drop off of what the performance of that helicopter would be doing. So that's a little curious, no less, but when you take a look at the whiteboard to the right on the other side of the doorway, it's then followed by minimized effectiveness with prolonged exposure. Exposure to what exactly? The only thing that makes sense to me thinking about the universe that encompasses everything in Black Ops is the blackout zone. When you take a look at that of actually what happens to a helicopter and any vehicle at that in Blackout for prolonged exposure to the zone, it starts to malfunction and then eventually just doesn't work. So it would make sense for a company to be monitoring this, especially a manufacturing company like this one found in Arsenal, and when you piece the lore together, it would just fit perfectly. So it's interesting that we start to see this again in plain view, but moving over more so into things that don't necessarily affect the current lore, but rather showcase some evolution of it, is that we end up also noticing that this Diasler company made score streaks for all the Black Ops games. We end up seeing that there was the RCXD, the Lightning Strike, the AGR, the Dragonfire, and the RAPS, all within one of the lobby areas right before you go into this testing room. So that's something very cool to see that this is now tied together by one central company and that it kind of gives some evolution of that backstory for the things that we've used throughout the years. Additionally, we also end up seeing this confirmed a little bit further, in which we have the evolution of the AGR. You end up seeing that it's from Black Ops 2 in 2025, then you have the 2038 Mantis, which we see currently on the battlefields of Black Ops 4, and then there's a 2040 prototype, which can actually be found in one of the main spawns for the map as well. So interesting to see that this is all again kind of interwoven in between each other for all the Black Ops games. But lore and more so hardcore stuff aside, the stuff that's hidden in plain view, let's talk about some whimsical things, because many of you guys may not be interested into diving that deep into the backstory of multiplayer and all that. So let's take a look at a few more Easter eggs that are just a little more whimsical. Let's jump back over to Hacienda, and we end up seeing that in the theater room there's a display case. You end up seeing many items, but things that stand out are Nuketown Mannequin's head from Black Ops 3, you have Seraph's arm, a grenade, as well as a spiked bat, which is perhaps a callback to World War II zombies or the melee from Black Ops 3, but no spikes were on that one. So kind of curious to me, but it also might be something that ties in with Ajax's backstory, but again, in that backstory, it was just a regular baseball bat. There were no spikes and nails coming out of it. So as for the relevance of it, who knows, but it is something that is there and some cool stuff to look at that are callbacks to previous Call of Duty titles. Additionally, on Hacienda, there's another callback because we end up seeing that in the office, right around the massive lion painting, there are multiple gold KN-44s from Black Ops 3. And that's actually not the only mention of the KN-44 that you'll see. You'll end up going into the boathouse and you can see a stash of regular KN-44s. Now, interesting that they use the KN-44 model here and not the KN-57 from Black Ops 4. So your guess is as good as mine as to the relevance of that. Maybe it was just something they were using to piece together some aesthetic and it was just some legacy assets they had on hand. but your guess is as good as mine. As for a few more on Hacienda, there actually are a few different remote controls that you can end up doing to interact with the environment a little bit further. You probably already know of the one that is the secret room within Black Ops 4 and Hacienda, but there also are a couple others. One being that there is a fountain remote that will activate the fountain in the center of the map. One can be found on each side of the map, one in the theater room and one in the winery. All you have to do is go over, hold your interact button on that, and it will turn on the fountain for about 5 seconds. Then it'll have a slight cooldown, you can do it again. So that's something if you maybe want to taunt somebody as the last alive in Search and Destroy, or whatever it may be, you can activate that. Additionally, there also is another one that can actually kind of provide some beneficial cover if you need it within one of the hard points, but when you go into the garage in the showroom, there's actually another one right leading up to that from the driveway to the showroom that will activate the spinning rotation of the display of the sports car. Now, while it doesn't offer all that much extra added cover from all that much, the rotation may provide some situational cover for a teammate that is on the other side of it, whatever it may be, but if you're on it, it'll definitely throw off your aim. It's not something that you can still look right down. It moves your entire viewpoint as well along with it. One fun fact that's a little Easter egg, and again, nothing too major. If you go into the lobby on driveway side, if you just listen, you sit there, it's actually the classic Mozart Symphony number 40 in G minor, which is something that usually a lot of the ambient music within maps are homemade things, some things the audio team has put together and thrown in the map, but this one actually has a real life counterpart to it, that being again one of Mozart's pieces. The final two we'll talk about on Hacienda, because again, there are just a lot of Easter eggs on this map in particular, which makes me so much more excited to dive in and look at every other map. But in the theater room, you can also end up seeing some real life counterparts to this as well, because designer Nelson Plumy actually put his pugs on the two paintings right next to the theater couches. Super cool for that one, and again, I love seeing those real life comparisons, but the final one we'll talk about deals a little bit more with backstory, but it's something that's a little more trivial compared to the other things we mentioned earlier in the video. When you take a look at right behind the winery, the landing right before you go up to the office, that's actually a little bit of a torture chamber. There's a chair splattered with blood, there's a removed bullet in one of the Petri dishes, there's all sorts of tools and different weapons there, and also, when you take a look underneath it, that's where some of those poor fellas met their demise, because there is actually a live tiger underneath the map. Certainly not the best way to go, but moving along into our final two Easter eggs here at this, we're gonna jump into Blackout, in which we mentioned we'd go here a little bit. But if you take a look at firstly Verrucht or Asylum, it's a callback to one of the classic Easter eggs within the Black Ops franchise, the toilet Easter egg. If you go over to the leftmost toilet in Verrucht and Asylum on the second floor, and you flush that toilet 3 times, it'll start to play Lullaby of a Dead Man over the speakers in Asylum. So certainly cool if you want to let your presence be known to somebody that may still be lurking around Asylum, or if you want to just slay out to an awesome track, that's a great way to do it. Additionally, the final thing in terms of this is another Zombies Easter egg, but more so just in reference. If you take a look at Factory and you go all the way down there, the more so larger storage facility actually has a little bit of a scoreboard type of thing where it says the number of days since the last accident, and that is 115 or 115 for element 115 in Zombies. But that's gonna do it here for this video. 16 Easter eggs, some a lot more in depth and some a lot more, again, having much more weight to them than others, and some more so whimsical, but hopefully you enjoy this one. I'd love to do more of these and dive more in depth into a lot of the maps, so if you guys wanna see more of this, feel free to let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But hopefully you enjoyed the video. If you did, make sure you drop a like down below, and of course, if you are new to the channel, make sure you guys subscribe so you don't miss a single thing regarding all things Black Ops 4, multiplayer, Blackout, Zombies, Easter eggs like this, you name it, we got you covered with the best of updates, information, tips, tricks, news, best class setups, all that good stuff, we got you covered. So anything that interests you, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss a single thing. If you guys also want to follow me over on Twitter and Instagram, those are the best places to get connected with me outside of YouTube. Practically live on both those, so if you guys want to strike up a conversation, whatever it is, links in the description below. Well, let's head out of the way. Hope you guys have a fantastic day. Thank you all so much for watching. Mine has been Espresso. Take care, and peace.